Don't fuck up. Welcome back to a number I can't count to.
So 3.
Peter Piper pick up. Peter Piper pick up.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm an editor's nightmare.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
If we can get you guys to sort of like and subscribe, that'd be great. Or not.
What's his name? Oh, no.
Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another weekend of ChelsChat with me, Moose, and JB. Great games to review this weekend. I think you can probably agree with me there, JB. Hard-fought results, but results nonetheless. And we've got some interesting news around some of the stuff around next season, new kit, some of the transfers, and obviously the 2 games this week coming up. Obviously West Ham and Watford, some great results potentially coming through on that, and pushing in the right direction, I think is the honest sort of term there. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below, just so we can get your views on ChelsChat in general and some of the topics that we're talking around. So let's start with last week. 2 big games that had unwanted repercussions, I think is the honest statement there. The City game, let's start with that. For us as Chelsea fans, that's a massive coup for us, getting a big win against the game that we really sort of didn't deserve to on paper. It's a game we typically would have lost, and we would have just counted that as a loss, and we would have just kept working towards getting 4th spot. But that's a big point in our season. Sort of Leicester are struggling at the moment. They're not playing as well as they did before the lockdown and the game stopped. But over the last 100 days, we've been working towards this, and we've got a massive sort of title killer. You've earned that stripe, and we played well. To your point there, it was a great game, and it wasn't one of those ones where you sort of just go, we'll just sort of like we had a few lucky breaks. I mean, the Pulisic goal, credit to him for sort of chasing that down, because he put pressure on those the Mendy, and I can't remember who the other centre backs who was struggling there. But
yeah, I think it was Gundogan was the one that they had the mix up when Pulisic got the ball.
For me, that's exactly what I want to be seeing, is a player with that sort of bite come through and take it on from pretty much the halfway line and go on and score. And there were some great performances. I mean, we've spoken the last couple of weeks around the games where we've not necessarily played our best. But I think we had a great game. We started to see the startings of certain players maturing. There's a lot of players who are still struggling after I don't know whether it's fatigue or loss of confidence. A lot of the younger players that we've been sort of talking around seeming to sort of fall into that category. But there's some still great standout performances. I think over the last sort of couple of games, and we'll go into the Leicester game in a minute, but Kante, Dave, Pulisic, Willian are having brilliant sort of games at the moment. They're consistently good. I just want to say it was a great game, and if you're looking at the table now, we're looking, 54 points with a game in hand over Wolves. We're only a point behind Leicester now, so
I think that's key is catching Leicester. That's really what we want to be looking at now, because United don't seem to be slowing down. Wolves have just come back in magnificent form. I tell you what's really going to be interesting though. You look at the final day of the season, you've got Chelsea against Wolves, but then you've also got Leicester against Man United. Both of those 2 games are the last game of the season. So if it goes down to the wire, that is going to be box office running for that last game. It's going to be incredible.
There's 6 points between United at 6th and Leicester at third. We're 1 point behind Leicester. Wolves are 2 points behind us, but with a game in hand. So we've got a game in hand there. So and it's really shaping up. And I completely agree with your point. It's not around trying to mitigate the points that Wolves and Man United pick up. It's now going for Leicester. Mm-hmm. They're starting to slow the pace. Don't get me wrong; they're still a dangerous club. They're not someone who you can just sort of expect to sort of drop out of the race and just sort of concede third. But they were really on fire before March sort of lockdown, and even today they weren't taking their chances. And I know we're going to touch on the Leicester game in a bit, but they did not seem like the same sort of club that they entered the lockdown with.
Yeah, they've definitely kind of had that negative impact of the lockdown. And if you look at their remaining fixtures as well, they're quite tough. I think they're probably tougher than what we have. Yes, we've got Liverpool still to play, Sheffield United and Wolves, but I think they've got about 4 or 5 rock solid games.
So they have got Everton away, Crystal Palace at home, Arsenal away, Bournemouth away, Sheffield United at home, Tottenham away, and then United at home. That's a hard run of games.
Yeah, and they've got a difficult run in as well. So, I mean, I think that ours is probably slightly easier than theirs when you look at them. I think the difficulty is the fact that we need to make sure it's not just a straight race between us and United, because I think we might struggle there, because I could see United winning out the rest of the season. I could see that happening. So we need to keep Wolves in touching distance. We need to keep Leicester in touching distance, because if we can get into third place at any point, then that's almost a little bit of breathing space. Yes, 5th place might become Champions League, but that's you're leaving that then for UEFA to kind of pick and choose who they want with the whole Man City disqualification thing. So we need to get into third. That should be our target. Get into third place. And then you can kind of take a breath and think, okay, yeah, we've sorted this now.
And to be honest, if I look at our run of games, so we've got West Ham away, Watford at home, Crystal Palace away, Sheffield United away, Norwich at home, and then we've got, I'm not going to spoil it for a little bit later in the show, but they've announced the semi-final fixtures, and then we've got Liverpool away. Oh God, that's going to be painful. Having to give them a guard of honour. And then Wolves, as you say, on the last day. Now, from my perspective, looking at that run of games, you've got the most possibility of getting maximum points from the next 5 games. Mm-hmm. I think West Ham, Watford, both struggling at the moment. Points that we can pick up there. Crystal Palace are not doing too bad, but I'd expect at least a couple of points from that. Sheffield United are struggling with fatigue at the moment. And I think a lot of the mid-level clubs are having that problem. Norwich, they could be all back down by that point. But then you've got the last 3 games, one being a semi-final and then 2 for the end of the season, that I'd want that tied up. I want 3rd or 4th in the bag by that point, because those are 2 hard games. Liverpool and Wolves. Hopefully Liverpool have just given up by that point. They've won everything. And I mean, to be honest, I'm one of those fans at the moment that with Liverpool, I want to just sort of an asterisk next to it. I know that we can't technically, but I want an asterisk next to it. 30 years, but did you really win it?
To be fair, yeah, it was done by
Christmas,
they
did, but if I'm telling a Liverpool fan that, it's definitely not. I'm that petty, but I'll take it.
Well, at least we can say that, Steven Gerrard tried to win the Premier League for years and years, and Lampard ended up winning it for Liverpool instead.
Love it.
He managed to do it.
Quote. So, if we go back to the Man City game, who's your standout performer on that pitch?
That's a difficult one because obviously Pulisic will take the headlines because for his first goal, his direct play was good. But I think one of the main reasons we won that game was our defensive work, which is surprising to say for us. You look at the amount of chances they had. Yeah, they had the ball most of the game, but the actual chances they created was maybe 3 or 4 in the whole game. Actual genuine chances. You had the header early doors, where of course from a set piece we got undone, but Kepa made a great save. You had obviously the free kick where they got the goal. And then almost immediately after that, Sterling hit the post. Other than that, they didn't really have too many real clear-cut chances, whereas we were creating chances a lot more. I think we had a lot more clear-cut chances than they did. So playing on the counter, whilst it wouldn't usually suit us, when you've got Pulisic in the team, you can do that. So obviously he kind of took the headlines for it, but I think defensively, we look quite good with Rudiger and Christensen actually having really good games, especially Christensen. So I'd probably point to Christensen as my my man of the match for that game.
I wouldn't disagree. I completely agree with your sentiment there. I think that defensively we were really solid, which is not something you could probably put too many games in past sort of over the last season that we could sort of definitely attest to that. I still think there's not necessarily a solid season-long partnership in that. I think sort of he had a great game, and I'm not going to take that away from him. I'm also going to highlight Dave had an absolutely amazing game. 2 assists. I think is it 2 assists in 3 games now? It's
I think he got 2 assists in the first game. So
and he got an assist today, and so
yes, no, he didn't. That was Willian.
I'll take that. But for me, he's looking on fire, and for us, sort of at the beginning, starting this podcast, we were like, right, I think we have to move Dave out of position and play him left back. He's really fighting out putting Reece James in the squad at the moment, and I know that Reece James has had a dip in form, and we'll touch on that a little bit in a minute because I think a lot of our youngsters have really struggled with the lockdown. They've not come back as fit as they were. We've struggled from a bit of fatigue in that youth piece where we were just at the beginning of the lockdown, bringing through the likes of Billy Gilmore, having absolute games of his life. And I know that we've had some of our friends who are sort of calling him when sort of we're talking around Messi and sort of those likes. I don't necessarily think he's in that ballpark, but absolutely unbelievable. Tammy's had the game of this season, but has been left out a number of times now. Now, I think that's just due to lack of confidence, but that's forced him to put Giroud up front. And I think also Tammy's probably got a little bit in the back of his mind, knowing that there's a big money signing coming that's going to put his position at risk.
The thing is, I think Giroud's actually been playing very well.
Yes,
and that's not even before lockdown. Even before lockdown, when Giroud was in the side, he was doing very well. I think he's useful to Lampard in the way we have to play in some of these games because when you're playing with someone like Pulisic, you need that big man to kind of drop a bit deeper, hold the ball up, lay it off, and you've got someone like Pulisic who's just going to directly run straight into goal. And you need someone who's going to hold the ball up like that. Tammy's getting better at it, but he's still not. He's more of a mobile striker, getting in behind. He can hold the ball up. He's got the ability to do so, but not at the same level as Giroud. And Giroud, he's always been that guy who he doesn't get the most amount of goals. Yeah, he doesn't always get the most amount of goals, but he can hold the ball up, he can lay it off, and his interplay with people is fantastic. It's one of the best for a striker. So I think he's definitely underrated in terms of that. And I think he kind of has put himself into the team. It's difficult to argue with starting him. Tammy's had a few games. He's now come on as a sub. He started tonight. He's not looked amazing, but he's done a good job when he's come in. So he's still putting his name out there, giving Lampard the option to use him. But I think he needs to start scoring a few goals to force his way back into the side.
I think it's a great comment there because I think the the headlines have all been around why Tammy hasn't started, rather than actually why Giroud has.
Yeah.
And to your point there, Tammy is not doing a bad job. He's coming on and putting in the right runs, the right movement. But we've been expecting a lot more from him the last season. He's been just sort of that out-and-out striker that's we weren't expecting, but we have got used to. But that's not to take away the credit from Giroud there, because he has been outstanding in the way in which we've been trying to play post-COVID. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to also touch on probably the brilliance of De Bruyne. That free kick was absolutely outstanding. And as a Chelsea fan, there's always that watching a player like that had so much promise for our club.
The thing is, though, I do want to say that other than that free kick, which, sublime, he had a very quiet game. I think we nullified him very, very well. He couldn't really dictate the play, which is why they didn't create so many chances. We kind of, I wouldn't say he was in Kante's pocket the whole game, but, Kante had him. Yeah. And, we gave away one free kick, which, he gives someone a chance like that, he's going to take it. He's that kind of player. But the rest of the game, he didn't really get into his flow, and he wasn't able to dictate the game like he usually does. So I think our midfield need to take, big kudos for keeping him under control really most of the game, because I think that was another key reason why they weren't able to create the chances they usually do. Even watching just now the first half of the Newcastle game, he's just controlling it, and every single time Newcastle got the ball back, you had about 6 Man City players around them, and they were winning it back. And the first thing they do is give it to De Bruyne. Yeah. And he, you watch almost all of the goals that City score, he's either getting the assist or he's getting the assist before the assist. Yeah. That's just, he's incredible.
And then do you reckon that's a bit of the Lampard effect? Being that almost he was that position for us for so many years. Tactically, he knows how to line up a midfield to nullify that effect, or they're not looking to go nullify a striker as much, sort of like an Aguero, or sort of obviously in the game there a Jesus, or more of a striking. But Lampard understands how to play and how to nullify a good midfielder, because he has been that role.
I think obviously he knows what he wouldn't have wanted to happen against him, but I think mainly it comes about from having a player like Kante, because he is like having two players in there. He gets about so much, and he's just, if I was playing against him, he would just be such a nuisance, because he's all over you all the time.
It's like my personality in a footballing.
Exactly. Yeah. Put your personality in a pair of legs, and that's N'Golo Kante. Just irritating, just constantly, every time you turn around, he's there, and he's marking you, and he's tackling you, and he doesn't stop. He just doesn't stop, and he never seems to tire. And you're gonna nullify someone. Like, you look at the games, the first two games we played, Grealish was in his pocket the whole game. De Bruyne was in his pocket the whole game, and that's how we have played so well. I think in those two games, Kante was such a big part of our wins, especially City, because De Bruyne controls the game so well when he's at his best. So you need someone like Kante in there to neutralise him as much as you actually can.
Yeah, and I think that's something, and we'll move on to the Leicester game in a second, but I think that for me is, we've spoken so much around how good a midfield we've got, and I think we have got such a gem in Kante. He's a player that can just help you control the games. He's a player who allows Mount to go and excel. I don't think Mount would have been able to go and push forward without someone like a Kovacic and a Kante sitting behind him. Yeah. Because having that freedom of just knowing someone's got your back, you don't even need to check behind you. You're going to work back, but you've got someone who will pick someone's pocket 90% of the time. Some great performances, and I think the City game for me was a bit of as much as it gave Liverpool the title, it for me was so much around us sort of putting sort of our hat in the ring for third place. and definitely sort of saying we can compete with the best here.
I think it was. I think it was a big case of this is us. Watch us next season, because I don't think we'll win the league next season, but I think we'll be up there. I think we'll be pushing. We might finish a pace away or a few paces away, but I think we're not going to be. We're going to be like how Leicester have been most of the season. I think next season we'll be kind of secured third place, kind of comfortable third place. Leicester have kind of thrown it away a little bit, but I think that's where we should be looking next season. Like, we're not really in danger of being caught, and we're kind of touching distance from City and Liverpool. If we can get to that point next season, then the season after, that's when we really want to start. We can try and win a league title here.
Definitely. So on that point of Leicester, the game today, what are your initial thoughts? I mean, it wasn't as good as we've just been given our plaudits of how good the game was with City. Today was a little bit less than that.
It was a let-off, wasn't it? First half was just absolutely terrible. I think I heard the commentators use the word sloppy describing Chelsea about 28 times. It was absolutely insane. We couldn't pass it to one of our own players. I don't know if they got confused with the blue shirts, because they were just passing it to a blue shirt almost every time. It was absolutely terrible. You come to expect that as a Chelsea fan. At the moment, you have one good game against a top team. The very next game, it's always a terrible performance. You look at the two Spurs victories we got, which were probably two of our biggest victories so far of the season. And straight away, the next game after, we were terrible. And so, we beat City, which is probably the biggest win for us this season. And then we go into a game and play terrible. The only positive is we got the win in the end. Lampard made some big changes at half time. And, again, he's made a big call there, and it's worked for us. The game completely changed. I think Kovacic was superb when he came on. He kind of led that press where Mason Mount usually would. He seemed a little bit tired today. And then Kovacic come on, took that role, and he was just, again, he was all over everyone. The second they got the ball and turned, he was on them. And that changed things for us so much. And his passing was anything but sloppy. So
it was definitely a game of two halves, because it was just one of those ones where massive changes, and rightly so. FA Cup, as much as I love it as a cup, you can tell Lampard's not necessarily putting as much effort in. He's recognising getting Champions League spot is the most important for him this season. I'd love to have silverware, but that's a nice added benefit rather than something we push towards. But a lot of big changes. No Kepa, starting Reece James, who, to the point we made earlier, has really struggled since coming back. Didn't have a good game at all. Kept Rudiger in, which obviously provides some of that defensive maturity, but Zuma and Emerson just not as good as sort of we had in that City game. There just seemed to be that cohesiveness across the back four, and there wasn't today. I think sort of midfield wise, Gilmour and Mount just weren't switched on at all today. I think sort of Gilmour has been given so much plaudits, and I think it was the worst thing this COVID happening for him and his confidence and his sort of press forward, but he just wasn't there. Couldn't knit the ball together. Didn't have that confidence where in sort of the Everton games and the games before lockdown.
I don't know if it was a confidence thing with Gilmour or a complacency thing. It almost seemed to me that he was feeling like everything he touched would turn to gold. Like that was exactly what was happening against Liverpool and Everton before lockdown. He couldn't do anything wrong. But I think he kind of had that overconfidence, almost like, I've got this. I did so well before. I'm going to do it again, and it's just going to come naturally. But it doesn't. You have to, you have to think. You have to work. And I think he just kind of got a bit caught up in everything and thought everything he was going to do was going to come off. So he tried things which maybe he shouldn't. Some of the passes across the across the middle of the field, he didn't need to make, but he looked like he thought he was going to make it because everything he tried before worked. So I think it was just a little maybe overconfidence, if anything.
And I think sort of that's what you need. I mean, lucky for us, it didn't actually, sort of that overconfidence didn't cause us anything within the game. But I think that would be a massive learning exercise for him. Is that it will sort of take him down a notch. That he hasn't got he isn't sort of the next Messi, etc. But what he is a midfielder who's got a lot of promise. If he just does the simple stuff right, because that's what he was doing in the Liverpool game. Wasn't being sort of lavish on pulling passes. He recognised those were big games, and he was being given that opportunity, and he was just doing the simple stuff right. And I think today that overconfidence crept in, and he was trying to do the special stuff right rather than just the simple stuff. But as you say, I think sort of let's not look at the bad points. I think the second half, Barkley, Dave, and Kovacic coming in were a breath of fresh air. I think Barkley, he got man of the match today. I wouldn't necessarily put him man of the match.
I think Kovacic probably would man of the match, even though he was only playing half a game. He, as I said, I think he changed the game single-handedly almost. Barkley did well, he created the outlet, which we wasn't really having in the first half. He was making runs off the on the blind side of the Leicester midfield, making runs in behind, helping out the wingers. You wasn't getting that from Mount, and you wasn't getting that from Gilmour. So he definitely, he brought something different. And I have actually been impressed with Barkley since we've come back, because you asked most Chelsea fans, and most are not fans of Barkley, but he does have that something to offer that not many other people have. He's very fit, he's very athletic, and it's just his decision making sometimes lets him down in the final third. Even a couple of times today, he had the ball and he could have laid it off to Pedro a couple of times. I think he had that. He had a chance where he could have laid it off to Ruben, and he passed it, but it was a bad pass. Yeah, Ruben ended up passing it back to him, and he had a dig. But it's just sometimes his the last action he does is the problem. It's all of the work he does. It's good, but just that last little something he's missing. And if he could just get that right, then I think he would be in the team every week. It's just that, as I said, that last decision he makes is always a terrible one.
And I think sort of he did the job for us this week, so I can't really knock him for that. But as you say, there were a few mistakes there. You mentioned Ruben, and we'll come on to Tammy, but Ruben, I'm struggling with at the moment. Playing him in a wing position offers a different piece in which you can almost just ping balls, and hopefully he'll catch those. But he's off the pace. Rightly so. 18 months out, you're not expecting someone to hit the ground running. But
I think the difficulty is that he needs minutes. He has to play to get up to speed. But at the same time, every game we play at the moment is like of utmost importance. We have to win every game, or at least get a draw. Every game is a must-win game if we want to get top four, because the others don't seem to be slowing down. And it's difficult to give him minutes when he's not performing, but you can't expect him to perform unless he gets the minutes. It's a little bit of a catch-22. I'm hoping, I don't like to see him on the wing. I don't think he's right for that position. I think I said it last week. He's better when he's playing facing the goal rather than with his back to goal and driving forward the midfield. That's, if you've got this big blokes running at you in the middle of the park, you're going to be worried about it, and that's where he is most effective. I would have probably tried to bring him on in that midfield if you were going to bring him on at all. The problem is we don't really have another winger at the moment because Hudson-Odoi's out, so he's kind of the only option we've got when we need to bring off Willian, when we need to bring off Pulisic to rest them. You don't really have many other options. Pedro, and then you've got Pedro, but then who else? If Hudson-Odoi's out, there's no one else to put out there.
Yeah, and he can play that position. He's just not excelling in that space. And I think Pedro's going to be cautious. Pedro is, 33, 34? He's got a contract at Roma for the next couple of years, and you don't want to get injured and that whole thing being put at jeopardy by over-earning. And so I can get that. But yeah, we are a bit thin on the ground there, and it's going to get better next season, but we just need to work with what we've got. Tammy coming on, brilliant. I think, as you say, he's not quite at the peak he was, but he didn't have a bad game. He didn't have a great game, and I think there's just a microscope because he hasn't started. But he'll get the minutes, and I'm sure he'll be back to his best. So we can only sort of hope for that piece. So lucky to get through, and we've now just had that we're going to be playing United in the semi-finals.
Again, that's the fourth time we've played them this season.
And it's going to be even more important because potentially they're going to be coming and really sort of nipping at our heels now in the league. And potentially their run of games isn't the hardest in comparison to ours. So potentially a drawn-out FA Cup is just going to be to their favour rather than us, which worries me a little bit. Their sort of last 5 games, I mean, they've got Brighton, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Southampton. Who else have they got? Us, and then West Ham and Leicester. So to be honest, whereas we had 5 games that I'd expect to sort of get points, for them I'd expect 6. And the only one that really is the last day of the season, which could be all wrapped up by that point. So it'll really sort of turn, but sort of 18th of July, they've not rearranged the fixtures yet. So they're currently playing 2 games on the 18th of July, which could be in our favour. Could be.
That could be good. If they forfeit the FA Cup, happy days. If they forfeit a Premier League game, even better.
Yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, that could be. I think that's just the worrying thing for me. People like Martial finding form. Because that's the double-edged sword at the moment. You've got a lot of players who had a lot of form before that have lost it, like your Gilmores, and then there's a plethora across different clubs that were in form and now not. But you've also got other players who are finding form and are now becoming massive assets. So I know we're focusing in on Martial getting a hat-trick at the weekend, but the link-up play with him, Fernandes and other players is slightly worrying because they're starting to get a bit of a march on, and I don't want that to put our sort of position at the end of the season at risk. I wanted to sort of now move on to some interesting catch-up. So we'll move on to the transfer tracker. New kit's been announced now. Yes. This is all new for me. I mean, as you'll rightly see, I only wear one kit on ChelsChat, and that's simply because I've bought for the first time. My good lady has bought me the first kit for about 4 or 5 years, just simply because I like to wear old kits, and I equally don't like to jinx kits. But
it's funny you say that, actually, because the reason I'm wearing this one specifically today, and this is going to sound ridiculous, when we played Villa the other day, I wore the black kit, we wore the black kit. When we played City the other night, we wore the blue kit, I wore the anniversary FA Cup shirt that we had, so I wore a blue kit as well, and we won. So I was like, okay, I think probably against Leicester we'll probably wear the white kit, so I'm going to wear the white kit today, and we won. So I'm going to have to try and figure out now for the rest of the season which kit we're going to wear against everyone and just try and match it up.
JB will put in his predictions on kits onto our Instagram, so keep your eyes peeled.
Which shirt are we wearing this week, guys?
But yeah, for me, I'm liking the new kit. I quite like the simplicity. I mean, this kit here, I really love it, but it's been a love-hate relationship. When I first saw it, it was a bit like not...
Looks like a bus seat.
Yeah, and it's like one of those ones where I got why they'd done it, what it looked like. But for me, at the beginning, it was a bit like, oh, I don't know about this. And bought it. I actually really love it now. My daughter's got the same kit, so we are full kit all around the house together. Which
John Terry style.
I mean, if your leader's going to do it, why can't I?
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
but no, I like the new kit. I think it's interesting. The detail, which would usually be white or red on a Chelsea shirt, is kind of a very dark blue, if not black. So around the collar and the arms. And I think it says Pride of London written down the sides as well, which is, again, a really nice touch because it's true. But No, I think it's really nice. The only issue I have is that big, massive 3 logo in the middle. Not a big fan of that. I would have preferred maybe them to just have like the word 3 written across the chest instead, something a little bit more subtle. But again, I think, like you said, with the shirt you're wearing now, it grew on me a little bit throughout the year. And I think this one probably will as well. We'll get used to that 3 logo because we're going to have it for a few years now. It's a lot nicer than the third kit that I've seen, which I'm hoping is not true. I'm hoping that third Crystal Palace kit's not right.
I really don't. I mean, the Yokohama tyres, it was always one of those ones where, why are we sponsored by tyres? I mean,
no one's interested by tyres.
No one is interested by tyres or retreading or anything around that. I think that's a kit. I might actually invest in that again next season. I like simple kits. There's sort of a few that I've got pride of place in my wardrobe, and this one could be, because I think next season could be a big season for us.
Yeah.
Also, so transfer trackers, some interesting news this week. The big one, I think, sort of obviously, we'll get onto Kai Havertz in a minute, because that's looking more promising considering they haven't made Champions League, which is a big piece for him. But we're not the only horse in that race. So essentially we might get into a bit of a bidding war. But I think Lampard sees a lot of talent in him. The big one, and probably a surprising one for me, there just seems to have a bit of truth to it. I may be reading into this a bit more, but the Kepa move. So that for those who haven't read it, it's the potential of Kepa going on a 2-year loan to Valencia, which, I mean, it's not the first time we've sent a keeper on loan for 2 years, but not one we've spent 71 million on them. But Onana, and Jamie's now going to give a rendition of his new chant that he's got for the player, ready for us signing him.
I don't remember agreeing to that at all.
Which for me means that we've just got to go out and sign them, because Jamie's now he's fully invested in us having this player simply so he can be the only person in the stadium giving this chant.
It was by accident we kind of came across that, though, because Moose said to me, what's his name? Oh, no.
For those of you who aren't Rihanna fans, feel free to sort of have a look at that and then just join the dots between yourself there. But that, for me, to be honest, I was surprised we didn't go for him at the time.
Well, I think the reason why this works is because Ajax, they know that Onana wants to leave, so they're looking for a replacement, and they're looking at the Valencia keeper Silerson. So Valencia are then thinking, okay, who can we replace him with? A 2-year loan deal, I think, is good business for us, because we're not going to recoup anywhere near 70 million for Kepa. If we're going to let him go, we're not going to get anything near that. But if he goes to Valencia for 2 years, does an amazing job, either they might cough up not 70 million, but 50 million maybe. You could ask something like that. If not from them, from someone else who's been impressed by his performances back in the Spanish league. So it kind of puts him in the market a bit more as well. Gives him an opportunity to go back to the league where he's comfortable, do a good job, and then we can recoup more money than we would if we sold him out right now. So I think a loan would probably be the best option. If he goes there and does an absolutely incredible job, then we can bring him back and see if he's improved.
The thing for me is, a keeper is one of those ones that you need someone with a level head. And as much as he has been up and down, it's one of those things that sort of, my worry is you bring in another player that gives you, as much as Onana's had an amazing sort of couple of seasons in Ajax, I just worry that you can get a keeper such a pivotal, if they can change the performance. At the moment, we technically have got a sweeper keeper. I debate that. But for me, I think you've got an experienced goalkeeper, not necessarily the best in the world, not necessarily the worst, but you can see how much that can disrupt if you have a poor keeper. And I don't think we've got a poor keeper at the moment, but I don't think we've got a great keeper. But if you look at where City were before Edison or Liverpool were before Alisson, potentially having a poor keeper in the mix could really put our season on, like, nowhere near winning the league, and then bring in a mature goalkeeper, which you would have expected for the price that we'd spent. It's just a risk, I think, is from my perspective, and I think that's a massive risk on all the stars aligning in and getting that merry-go-round to work. From my perspective, I would love to bring in Onana as a competition rather than a replacement, because Willie's not got he's 38 now. He's got about a season in him.
Yeah.
If we get any injury to our goalkeeper, you've got Willie and youth keepers, and the Premier League doesn't give benefits like they do to the La Liga, where Barcelona are allowed to go and sign someone simply because there's someone injured. That's just as a fan, there's a risk there. Moving on, Kai Havertz, I think he's an exciting talent. He equally adds a lot of complexity in the fact that we've already got quite a bloated midfield, but looks promising, and it's not a small price tag on that. That's looking at around 89. Whether that will have dropped because they've not made Champions League,
I think it would have done. I think he'll be a bit more available because I think they knew if they didn't get Champions League, he wanted to go. I think the other names being linked with him, Man United, I think we have an advantage over them in terms of, firstly, we're more likely to get Champions League football at the moment. And secondly, we've got Rudiger and we've got Werner, who both play with him in the German national team, which it's not going to make all of the difference, but it could make, those few kind of final last decisions. It's like, well, I've got two mates there as well. That would be nicer to play with them. But I also go on.
So the question: where do you fit him in? Where do you fit him into our squad with all of the talent we have?
Yeah,
you go and spend 75 million on a player, which probably is the region you'd have to spend. Who do you drop to bring him in?
Well, the thing is, I think he's a generational talent. I really do. I think he's one of those in the mould of a Zidane or, that kind of level. He's not obviously there yet, but I think he has got the ability to be that kind of level. I think he's a step up from Ziyech and even Werner. I think he's got the ability to really, really be a game changer. It's difficult because it depends what Lampard's idea for him would be, what his plan would be, because I think he'd be very useful as a false nine, which would mean dropping Tammy, and then having, Werner and Ziyech, or Werner and Hudson-Odoi, or Werner and Pulisic, or any of those combinations playing with him. You've almost got that. He's almost a Firmino kind of player when you put him in that position. If you have him as that false nine, he's your Firmino, and then you've got your Salah and your Mane in, two or three different options to replace those two almost. So it's almost like a carbon copy of what Liverpool's structure has been over the last couple of years. I'm not saying we're going to be anywhere near as good as they have been, but that's probably the goal. Or you can put him in as a number 10 behind the striker, or you can play him in midfield. I don't know if he's capable of playing out wide either. But he's, again, something that I've noticed is that we have been buying players that are very versatile, who can play in multiple positions. So you can almost, of the front players and even some of the midfielders, you can kind of just put them in anywhere and it doesn't matter. They're so flexible and versatile and fluid in where they can play. You just say, right, these are the front six that are starting. Go where you want on the pitch. It doesn't matter. You can play anywhere. And I think Lampard's kind of got something in mind, some kind of style that he wants to implement when he's looking at these players, because he's not bought anyone that is just fixed in one position, that can only play one position. He's buying players or looking at players that can play in multiple positions, and even Declan Rice we've been linked with. I saw something this morning which was saying that we're actually looking at him as a centre half. So we're looking at him to be a new centre half for us as opposed to a midfielder. But again, he's a player that can play in two positions. Lampard doesn't seem to like to buy a player that can only play one position. And that's probably why he's not managed to find a replacement keeper yet, because there's not many of those that can come out on pitch. But no, I think it's something in his mind is that he wants players that can be flexible and can play in multiple positions. And that's what Havertz brings. And that's why he would be very useful for us.
So if we get Havertz, that probably brings us to obviously plus 100 million, which would obviously have spent the money we've gone from Hazard. The other potential players, so I think there is still, if we sign Havertz, I think, in honesty, that there still needs to be a centre-back and potentially it's three players, a centre-back, a left-back and a goalkeeper.
Well, the centre-back, from what I'm hearing, is he wants a ball-playing defender is what he wants to bring in. So, as I said, Declan Rice would be ideal. And that's just a rumour I've heard, is that he's apparently we reckon we can get him for 45 million and play him as a centre-half, which, when I first heard the rumours about Rice coming to Chelsea, it was more like 60 million as a midfielder, and I was thinking, you don't need another midfielder, not for 60 million. But if we're going to get him for 45 million and he's going to play as a centre half, it's a different story. He's played a few times at centre half for West Ham and he's looked good. It's just whether he's the right fit for that role to play alongside your Tomori's going forward, or your Christiansens, or your Rudigers. He has got leadership abilities, so maybe that communication might help us out, because that's where we seem to struggle a lot, is our communication at the back. So maybe it could be a very good, wise decision to do that. But
I'm not too sure yet. I mean, it's always a risk buying a player for them not to be played in a position, especially for that money. There is the benefit that potentially West Ham go down. They are literally just above the relegation by the skin of their teeth at the moment.
Yeah, but they're going to beat us, aren't they? You just know it.
I really hope not. It's probably one of the games I've been to the most. Seeing all Chelsea games, West Ham typically away. It's been what I've been to.
We've been a couple of times, haven't we? West Ham away.
And it's always an interesting game. But yeah, I'm not too sure about Declan Rice. You've got a great relationship with Mason Mount, which obviously adds to that. That video of him being scared by Mason Mount is probably one of the best things I've watched. But for me, it's a massive risk to go and invest that amount of money to build them into a position rather than buy them for the position they need to be. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned the West Ham game. It's interesting. Their run of form has been poor, which, as you quite rightly said, does not stand for anything. When you play Chelsea, you can have been on the worst form in your life, and we can really mess ourselves up.
It's not just that, but any London derbies are always kind of, you can write form off. It doesn't matter. It's a game in itself. It's almost like I wouldn't say it's like a cup final, but it's got that kind of anything can happen vibe to it. Any derby, any London derby is like that. You can turn up and play a Palace team who have got 1 point from 30 games and they could beat you. It's a London derby. Anything can happen, and that's where I worry. West Ham always seem to be that team where they will lose to our rivals. Anyone that's around us, they will lose. United, Tottenham, anyone comes to us, they'll beat us. It's just how it goes, and it's frustrating, but I can see it happening. You'd never think that we've just won the first 3 games back, considering how negative I'm feeling. It's crazy. It's just the Chelsea way, isn't it?
So we've got them. I think it's Wednesday next.
Yeah, Wednesday night. Yeah.
So they're off the back of 2 losses. So they lost to Tottenham, lost to Wolves, both 2-0. They've had a real poor amount of possession. they are, as I said, in the relegation battle. And at the beginning of the season, the amount they invest in their squad, they should be one of the teams that stay up. But that doesn't count for anything in the Premier League.
No.
So that you've got them. I say Watford, West Ham, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Norwich, all within about 6 points of each other. You could involve Brighton and Newcastle in that, but I think those teams are actually.
I think Newcastle are definitely safe. Brighton, they've got quite tough games, but I think they're just about there. I reckon 38 points this season probably looks like it's enough to stay up.
And they've got Mopay because he's a beast who destroys goalkeepers. But for me, it looks like an interesting game. For me, writing the lineup now, I think I could write the defence now with a little bit more confidence. I think that
probably for both games as well.
I would keep it, to be honest. He needs to build some confidence rather than switching the back four around. And I think Reece James needs to earn his position again.
To be honest, I think he might be done for the season. He'll play a few cameos, but unless Dave gets injured or something, I think he's going to be starting at right back for the rest of the season. And I can imagine Alonso playing the majority of the games at left back. Emerson was poor today; he's not going to come in. So I do think those two will be our fullbacks going for the rest of the season. And I know you've thought Zuma had a poor game today. I don't think he was that bad, but he also wasn't as good as the boys were the other night. So I do think it'll probably be Christensen and Rudiger for the rest of the season as well. I think that's probably our back line with likely Kepa in goal. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be long term, to be honest, that defence and goalkeeper is going to hold for us, which is probably what we need, is a bit of stability back there.
Yeah, and I think midfield-wise, the strongest three that we've had, Kovacic, Kante, and probably Mount, would be my starting three in there.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jorginho comes back in, just because he's not actually played at all. Like, he's not even come on as a sub since, and I don't know what's happened there. I know he was suspended for the first game, so we knew he wasn't going to play against Villa, but he's not featured at all since. So maybe he's got a knock, or maybe he's not come back fully fit, or maybe Lampard just doesn't like his new beard. I don't know what it is, but he's not seemed to be in his plans. So he might sneak in at some point. Lampard might be all right. Let's see what you got going against Watford or against West Ham, and
well, he got that absolutely amazing assist at the Watford game earlier in the season. So I don't know. I mean, as you rightly said, both our games in the next week are against clubs who are desperate to stay up. Both in a poor run of form. I think the Watford game potentially could be difficult as well. As much as you've got the London sort of derby sort of element to the West Ham game, Watford just seems to be one of those clubs that have got talent that can hit you on the break. That talent hasn't quite picked up the pace, but I wouldn't put it past people to go and really sort of hit us on the break for this week. It's an interesting. I think sort of there's so many variables at the moment. If we were at this point in the season and we'd had the run of form, I think we could have written what the results were. But to play 2 games within the space of 4 days, and equally not have the ability to sort of run in with, there seems to be sort of a lack of confidence, or there's a lack of fatigue, or I'm not too sure what's gone on, but there's just a lack of form for a lot of the players that we're switching and swapping players like nobody's business.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, we've got you could probably write a starting 11 now with players that are playing well. That's fine, but they can't play every single game for 90 minutes. You need your squad to be playing well, and you need your squad to be able to come in and help out. I mean, some of them have just had a single bad game here or there, and you can't really write them off for that. But I think I know, in my head, I know what our strongest 11 is at the moment, the way they've been playing, the form that they're in. And it's probably the team that started against City. It's probably that team.
It'll be interesting to see if Pulisic starts for the West Ham game. So he came off with a bit of tightness in his calf after the second drinks break, which still, for the life of me, is a weird situation to have.
Obviously, it's because they're playing in June and July, so it's notorious for hot weather. I mean, I don't think they needed it today because it's a bit cold outside, but that's why they do it. But I think, do you know what, that helped us out quite a lot today. It really did. After that start, the first 20 minutes, we were basically, I thought we'd turned up to the wrong stadium or something. We were awful. And after that drinks break, we were still awful, but we were a lot less awful. And then after half time, obviously everything changed. So I think, they're not really using it as much just to get a drink as a mini timeout, like a little team talk. You
just imagine Lampard just going.
Yeah, exactly. And we needed it a lot of the times.
I think if we could do that in games, I think we'd be doing it a lot more at the moment. But for me, I think 2 good games to. I mean, I would be disappointed if we don't walk away with 6 points this week. But
so I'm surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised if we sort of pull away with 2, just because of the form of. We seem to be that club that people turn around their form quite quickly on.
Yeah,
but we'll see how it goes. And I think there could be some really interesting signings, or at least movement in the transfer this next couple of weeks. So obviously looking forward to the next couple of games. We'll be sort of commenting on Instagram, Facebook, and a number of other social media platforms with you guys. So please keep us up to date. Anything you guys want to hear from us, anything you guys want us to talk around from ChelsChat News, don't forget to comment below. Anything you guys feel you have a compelling need to talk to us around, and like and subscribe. It's been great. It's been Moose. It's been JB. It's been ChelsChat. See you next week.